The Boston Celtics for years have been the boogeymen of the Eastern Conference, and they have been running it for a while. They won the NBA Finals just one season ago, and they have been just probably the best team in the Eastern Conference for a while now. But unfortunately, they kind of are finding themselves in a dangerous spot, okay? Like, the Boston Celtics are in real trouble this year, and I think they're starting to really fall apart, and they are losing a lot of key pieces, and I think their offseason additions were far outweighed by their offseason losses. I don't think they did enough to replace them, and I think the Boston Celtics, for reasons that aren't in their control and are in their control, are going to be significantly worse going into this season. So in this video, I'm going to be basically going into what their new team is, how they got here, and what I think the outlook for this team going forward is going to be. So if that does sound interesting to you, please watch the video all the way through. Hit the like button and subscribe button to road to me. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. So they started off the offseason by trading Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anfernee Simons. And although I like Anfernee Simons, I think Jrue Holiday's style of play and how he goes about playing basketball is a lot more indicative to winning than what Anfernee Simons does. Now, I'm not saying Anfernee Simons is a selfish or bad player or he doesn't help winning. I just think Jrue Holiday's way of playing is way more complementary to winning big games and big situations than Anfernee Simons is, and I just think overall Jrue Holiday is probably a better player because yes, Anfernee is better than Jrue offensively, but defensively it's not even close. And then they followed that up by trading Kristaps Porzingis for Gorgeous Niang, and then they traded Gorgeous Niang for picks to Utah. So they basically traded Kristaps Porzingis for a few picks at the end of the day, and I mean, you're not going to get anything to replace that. So that's just a straight up loss basically as of right now. And then in the draft, they drafted Hugo Gonzalez and they drafted Amari Williams. So when you break down this offseason, it's pretty rough, okay? It wasn't great. They basically traded Kristaps Porzingis for absolutely nothing, and they didn't do much to replace him at all. They traded one of the best role players in the NBA in Jrue Holiday for Anfernee Simons, who, like I said, solid, but probably not a better player than Jrue, and I think Jrue is just a better winner than Anfernee Simons is, and it wasn't a great trade. And then in the draft, you got Hugo Gonzalez, who I'm not the highest on. I don't think he's going to have much of an impact year one at all, if ever. I just don't think Hugo's that good of a player. And then Amari Williams, some people like him, and I mean, he'll probably play a role just because of how bad the center rotation is on this team. But I mean, Amari is going to just be an okay at best center, maybe even probably going to be a below average center, especially his rookie year. So I don't think their draft helped them. I think they lost every trade and move they made. It just wasn't great. And don't get me wrong, I understand why they're doing this. Like, they had to from a money perspective, they had to reset. But still, it doesn't make these moves actually good. Like, even though they had to do it, they still definitely weren't great moves, and their team definitely got worse during this offseason. And then compound that with the fact that Jason Tatum is going to very likely miss the entirety of this season coming up. That is going to leave them without their MVP-level leader and moving Jaylen Brown into the role as their best player for this season. And that's going to be a huge problem because Jaylen Brown is a great player. And the problem is not Jaylen Brown being your best player, it's the fact that now your second option on the entire team is Anfernee Simons. And Anfernee Simons is far from being good enough to be the second best player on a high-level team. And then it just keeps getting worse and worse from there. And I just think overall, with Tatum's injury, with the key losses this offseason, this team, talent-wise, is going to be worlds worse than we've seen former Boston Celtics team for the past few seasons. And with all this shuffling and losses and injuries that the Celtics are currently going through, that leaves them with a much less deep team. Because for a while, Boston has had a great bench, and they have been one of their strengths of the team is how deep and how versatile this roster is due to all the high-quality depth they have. And that will not be the case this season, because Derek White will likely have to be starting now with Anfernee Simons. That's going to be their starting guards. And then you're going to still have Peyton Pritchard, who's very solid as a backup. And that's probably still your deepest position at guard. But then even after Peyton Pritchard, you have Sam Hauser, Baylor Shimmerman, and Max Shulga. Now look, Pritchard, like I said, I think is very good. Hauser is a solid player who's a great three-point shooter, and he definitely has a role on a lot of other teams. Baylor is very unproven, and no telling what he gets. And Max Shulga, I like, but he's a rookie who probably won't have that much of an impact. So I just think overall, this team is going to be even less deep in this position. This is their best position still, but I still think last year when they had Derek White and Pritchard off of the bench, that was probably one of the best guard duos in the NBA, coming off of anyone's bench. But now you're going to have Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, and that just doesn't hit the same at all. And even their guard rotation, which is probably their deepest position, still got worse. And then when you look at their small forward rotation, they're most likely going to start Jaylen Brown at that position, I would imagine. And from there, their backups forwards are not great. You have Sam Hauser, who can play small forward. You have Hugo Gonzalez, who not great. And then Josh Minott, okay? And let's be honest, outside of Brown, they have no small forwards that should be playing significant NBA minutes. Now, Sam Hauser is solid, but not really your ideal small forward. Josh Minott is at best a end of rotation guy on almost any other team. And on a lot of teams, definitely not going to play. And then Hugo Gonzalez is completely unproven. And from what I saw, I'm not too high on Hugo's potential, especially not right away year one. So that small forward position is unbelievably thin, okay? They are a Jaylen Brown injury away from having to start Hauser, Hugo, or Josh Minott. And that is a gigantic problem. And then even when you get to power forward, you'll probably have Xavier Tillman starting, I would imagine, which is bad enough. But then behind him, you have Chris Boucher, Jordan Wash. Now, don't get me wrong, Chris Boucher, not a terrible player. Even Xavier Tillman is an okay role player off your bench. But when he is your starting power forward, that's not ideal. Chris Boucher, also not ideal to be your backup power forward when he's backing up Xavier Tillman. And then Jordan Wash, who is good on defense, is completely awful on offense and has showed very little development since he's gotten in the league. So to think he's going to make some type of leap this year would be a stretch. So most likely their power forward rotation is going to be Tillman and Boucher. And, well, that's not ideal at all. I don't think you can argue that. And then lastly, at the center position, they went from having Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford to having Neemias Queta and Amari Williams as their center rotation. When I'm telling you that is probably the worst center rotation in the NBA, I'm not exaggerating. Look, Neemias had his moments, okay? I know. Neemias had his moments. He was solid. But he is not a starting center in the NBA, and Amari Williams has a long way to go before he's anything that resembles a starter in the NBA. So, the Celtics have a terrible front court rotation this year. Their small forward position is one injury away from not being far off of the power forward and center positions. And then at guard, at least you're deep there. But even then, if Anfernee Simons misses or Derek White misses a lot of time, that depth then goes away very quickly because Pritchard would have to move to the starting lineup. So they are like 1 or 2 injuries away from legitimately being a high-level lottery team. Now, long-term, that might not even be a terrible thing because this draft class is stacked. Tatum would come back and they would be ready to be good again. But this year, they have a chance to be very bad. And even if they're fully healthy, they're probably going to struggle because although the Eastern Conference isn't amazing this year, I think there's a lot of teams that still got a little bit better and are probably going to be better than the Celtics this year, like if they're fully healthy. The New York Knicks, I think, are going to be better than the Celtics this year. And I'm not even a big Knicks fan, but I do think the Knicks are a better team. Milwaukee added Miles Turner, and they should be a pretty strong team. They'll be better than the Boston Celtics this year. The 76ers might not be better than the Celtics this year, but they're going to be damn close because they're going to get significantly better if they are healthy, which is a big if for the 76ers. But if they're healthy, they're going to be a significantly better team this year. The Cleveland Cavaliers should still be a very strong team. I'm pretty sure they're returning all 4 of their main guys, so they should be pretty damn strong once again. The Orlando Magic are going to develop from Paolo and Franz Wagner getting better, plus they added some other guys in the offseason, so Orlando probably got better. Miami added Norman Powell, Khalil Ware is going to be going into year 2, Bam Adebayo should be fully healthy, Tyler Hero's there, like Andrew Wiggins is going to be there for a full year, their chemistry is going to be better. Miami got better. And then even the Detroit Pistons, due to how young they are, they already had a breakout year last year, and as their young guys just get better and more comfortable, they're going to continue to get better as well. So the Pistons will even be better. So there's a very real chance the Celtics have a very, very rough year this year. Some reasons due to the injury they can't control, some reasons due to the rough offseason they had to put together. And I just think overall the Boston Celtics are probably in for a pretty rough 2025 through 2026 season. And I just think I can't see them talent-wise matching up with the best teams in the East. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be my first video. So comment below. Do you agree with me? Do you think Boston's going to have a rough season? How good or bad do you think they're going to be? Or your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the point, the like button, subscribe button, I mean that's a word to me. And I hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.